Esther Chapter 1, Through the Bible, Part 3. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes, and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. Esther 1 verse 16. We've heard much about the fact that back in those days women were chattel. In many cases that was true, but apparently Vashti had a lot of freedom, and there was no law which could force her to obey the king's command to come to the banquet. The cabinet was going to have to come up with a severe and harsh law to take care of the situation. About this time, a little fellow named Memucan speaks up. He's the spokesman and a henpecked husband. How do I know he is henpecked? He is afraid that, when the deed of the queen comes to the attention of all women, they will look with contempt upon their husbands. Memucan is Mr. Milquetoast. If the queen gets away with this, he would not want to go home. I don't think he had much to say in his own home. I think his wife made most of the decisions. This, perhaps, is one of the reasons he spoke out at this cabinet meeting. There are many men who take orders from others in their employment. They never get a chance to express themselves. Then they go home, and their wives won't let them express themselves either. I have known such men who speak out when they serve on church boards. They talk and talk, but they make no contribution to the welfare and development of the church. They talk but have nothing to say. They make suggestions that have no merit. Memucan is this kind of a man. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported. The king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. Esther 1 verses 17 and 18. This man, Memucan, is one of the princes, you see. He says, I will have a fight over this matter when I go home. In fact, I think he came to the conclusion that if something was not done, he would not go home. Perhaps you have heard of the henpecked husband who came to the office one morning and boasted, Last night my wife was down on her knees to me. One of the fellows, knowing the situation, was a little skeptical. He said, What were the circumstances, and what exactly did she say to you? He looked a little embarrassed and admitted, Well, she was down on her knees, looking under the bed, and she said, Come out from under there, you coward. There is also the story about the man who told the people in his office that his wife said that he was a model husband. He told this to a hard-boiled secretary, and she did not commend him. Instead, she said, Why don't you look up the word model in the dictionary, and you won't be so proud of it. He took her advice. A model, he found out, was a small imitation of the real thing. That is what Memucan was. He was henpecked. He was Mr. Milquetoast. He said loud and clear, Something must be done to protect our homes in this matter. And actually it was a real crisis because the king and queen set an example for the kingdom. Notice Memucan's proposal. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. Esther 1 verse 19. I trust that you realize the setting for the book of Esther is a pagan court. A pagan law is being enacted which has nothing to do with the Mosaic law, neither is it Christian by any means. It is a new law, but it is the law of the Medes and the Persians. And when the king's decree which he shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Memucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. Esther 1 verse 20-22. The queen is set aside. No more is she to be the queen. It happened because she refused to obey the king. A decree went out. It declared that in the kingdom a wife was to honor her husband, and he was to rule. Apparently, this had not been true before in the empire of the Medes and Persians. Now it is law, and it cannot be altered or changed. This law reveals the character of Xerxes as he stands in profane history. You will remember that he took his army, the largest that had ever been marshaled, as far as Thermopylae. Also he came with a fleet of 300 ships which were destroyed at Salamis. This man, in a fit of madness, went down to the sea and beat the waves with a belt for destroying his fleet. Now a man who will do that evidently has something radically wrong with him. It seems that he was a man who suffered from some form of abnormality, as most of the world rulers have and still do. Julius Caesar, Napoleon, and Hitler were men of abnormal mental processes. Nebuchadnezzar, great man that he was, represented as the head of gold, suffered from a form of abnormality known as hysteria. We find him moving through these cycles in the book of Daniel. Any man today who even wants to be a world ruler ought to be examined by a psychiatrist. However, forms of abnormality have not kept men from achieving greatness in the history of the world. This is true of Xerxes. He was a man of tremendous ability. Yet in unreasoning anger, he allowed this banishment of his lovely queen. It became the law of the Medes and Persians, an edict which could not be altered. Although later the king himself wanted to break the law, he could not. The law of the Medes and the Persians could not be broken.